Well, joining me now to share more about the ministry of the Family Research Council is the chair of the FRC board, former Congresswoman Michele Bachmann. She also serves as dean of Regent University's Robertson School of Government. Michele, welcome back to the program.
Tony, always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Let me just say thank you, first off, for serving as the chair of our board. You do a wonderful job, and I'm just so grateful that as you left Congress, and I know the story behind it, the Lord just called you to lead. You didn't to leave. You didn't need to, but you wanted to be obedient. Lord's opened tremendous doors for you now at Regent University, and you're leading ministries, Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast, and you find time for the Family Research Council. So again, on behalf of all of us here, let me say thank you.
Oh, you're entirely welcome. This is one of the greatest joys of my life, to serve as chair of this board. This is really a legacy project in a lot of ways, because I see that for the last 40 years, what Family Research Council has done is to bring a profound ability of Christian leadership that has been changing the United States, but also changing the world. A lot of that is attributable to your leadership, Tony, but I know you would always give credit to the team at FRC. It is a truly remarkable team, and the work that they're doing has changed the United States for good.
I appreciate that, and it is a team. We've got a tremendously committed team of men and women. But I want to go back just for a moment to your time on Capitol Hill. Now, we connected before you came to Washington when you were a state senator in Minnesota. But when you came to D.C., what kind of role did you see FRC playing as it pertained to federal policy and to your colleagues on Capitol Hill?
Well, it was a vital role. I knew that they were part of what was called the Values Action Team. They came to a weekly meeting to inform members of Congress about different issues that are going on. A lot of people may not know that in a congressperson's office, they have staff people, but a lot of the staff people tend to be about 25 years of age. They're eager, they work hard, but they don't necessarily have the wide breadth of background on issues. Family Research Council came in. They helped my staff to know what was going on. They were a credible voice that my team could rely on to have issue briefs, to understand issues, but also to understand who various allies are. And they gave us a heads up as to potential problems that could be coming in legislation. I would say that Family Research Council was absolutely vital and necessary to my office because of the many ways that they amplified and augmented the work that my staff could do.
Now, Michele, to be very clear, there are some other wonderful policy organizations that we partner with, the Heritage Foundation, and I could go down a list. I don't want to exclude anyone, but there is something that was different about your leadership on Capitol Hill, which I think is, I don't want to speak for you, but I think what drew you to the Family Research Council to be our chair is that we don't just address the political issues. We know the policy, we have the experts, we have the PhDs that do the research, but they do so from a biblical perspective.
Well, that's right. And even more specifically, from a biblical worldview perspective. That's what Regent University is about. Teaching academics from a biblical worldview perspective. Family Research Council has never deviated from that perspective. For the last 40 years, they have brought that viewpoint to Washington, D.C. It was sadly missing. And those who in the very early years who began Family Research Council, they saw that. They saw firsthand that the biblical worldview perspective of so many Christians in the United States was not being spoken into this legislation. Family Research Council filled that gap. They haven't deviated from that initial mission statement, and they've stayed true to it.
Michele, we just got a couple minutes left. What would you say to those who are discouraged about the direction that our country is taking? Say, you know what, we just need to give up on being involved in quote unquote politics, and it's not working.
Well, I understand why they feel so disappointed, especially for the last couple of election cycles. But what I would say to them is, even though we may lose in the short term and an election cycle, this perspective, the biblical perspective, which we believe is founded on truth from God's word, that perspective continues to get poured into the members of the House, the members of the staff, the members of the Senate, the members of committees into the White House policy positions. This perspective doesn't deviate, and we need to look at things from a long-range perspective. Yeah. You have periods when you win and periods when you don't, but you need to stay constant because the Lord our God is constant.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, we need to have an eternal perspective, knowing that, it's not just this election cycle. It's not even the next election cycle, and quite frankly, it's not even our lifetime. Rather, it's what we do that makes a difference in eternity, and we need to have a presence to be salt and light everywhere, wherever the Lord.
Well, it is, Tony, and we don't just take our marbles and go home. That's one thing that we have to learn in these political battles, is that you don't just take your marbles and go home. That's what the other side would like to see. They'd love to see us be discouraged and just take our marbles and go home and give up. There is never a time to give up, ever. As a matter of fact, sometimes, it's always darkest before the dawn. So I have great hope, especially at this time of year, because we serve the Prince of Peace. He fills our heart with peace, and we continue to work for peace.
You're absolutely correct. So well said. Michele Bachmann, always great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And again, thank you for serving as the chair of the Family Research Council Board.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.